This is the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks of all ages, welcome to show episode number 300. Yes, we've been geeking out for 300 episodes, plus we've got some major announcements coming down the pike. So let's get started with episode 300 of Geek Smack. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks of all ages, Jeffrey Powers here with Geek Smack over at Geekazine. Think magazine, put in a geek, you've got Geekazine at geekazine.com, Twitter handle Geekazine, and of course, everywhere else. Wherever you go, whatever you do, know that it's Geekazine forever. For the Geek Smack, the show there, we've been going for 6.5 years, episode number 300. And it is a good day and it is a bad day. It has been a very emotional day today. And I'm going to tell you why, because not only is this episode number 300, which a lot of podcasts, a lot of videocasts don't even get to, it's also the day where I'm going to make this major announcement. And the major announcement is, simply put, that Geek Smack is going to be going on a hiatus. A little bit more about that in a few minutes. First of all, like I said, if this is the first time you come to the show, thank you very much for coming to the show for right now, the soon-to-be last episode for the summer, as I do take the summer off and figure out some things with some of the shows that I'm doing. This is not the first time that I've actually ended a show before. I've had some other podcasts that I've pod faded into the distance, but this is the first show. This is the flagship show of Geekazine. This is the Geekazine Weekly Podcast. This is what started it all back in October of 2007, when it was still called The Show, and that was pretty much it. And now it's time to say goodbye to what turned into Geek Smack, at least for now. So the thing is, there's so many emotions. Like I said, this is episode number 300, which means that I've done 300 episodes, and it's also the fact that it's the last episode. So at least for now. So I'm going back and forth, and I'm babbling, and I apologize. But anyway, I remember the first show. I sat back and I listened to the first episode of the Geekazine Weekly Podcast, then called The Show. And it was just me and a microphone. There was no video involved. There was no audio. Oh, well, there was audio, but there was no video. There was no pomp and circumstance, and there was no studio by any means. It was just me in front of a computer. And I even remember the place I was in when I was doing that. The computer was sitting right next to my bed, and my microphone was just poised up, and it was an old Yamaha board that I used to use as a musician. Channel 1 broke on it, and so I put it in, and I had a microphone that I've used in so many gigs, and it smelled like beer and cigarettes. And I had it attached to a microphone stand, and I just basically did the show. And of course, the show it was not my first podcast, as I had another podcast called the Independent Music Podcast, and I switched that over to Geekazine because of two reasons. One, because of my love of all things tech and all things geek, but also because of the fact that, at that time the RIAA was really going to put down the hammer on music podcasts, and even though I had luck finding a lot of independent artists, I was doing a lot of reading, and it's like in a couple of years, this will be a very intense legal issue, and I just didn't want to deal with it, and it wasn't doing it for me too much. So I moved over and I started Geekazine and the Geekazine Weekly Podcast, which then, of course, turned into Geek Smack in June of 2011. And that's when I really started implementing video, got the studio together, started recording not in front of just the computer, with a microphone in front of me, and I kept going from there. Since then, I launched so many shows: 5 Tech Things You Should Know, the Geekazine Quickcast, the OTT. Let's see, we had iPad 365, This Week in Google Glass, Day in Tech History. Of course, Day in Tech History came from the Geekazine Quickcast, and or as Stewie would say, the Quickcast. And it was a lot of fun, and of course moved on, and still going today. And in fact, it's the only podcast that runs 7 days a week. And well, not the only podcast that runs 7 days a week, but the only podcast that's been running 7 days a week since October of 2009. We're heading to episode number 2000 for Day in Tech History, and that's a pretty good milestone. And not too many people even get to 1,000 on when it comes to 7 day a week podcasts. I know Andy McCaskey over at SDR News used to do his show daily with expirable content. Mine has with Day in Tech History, it has more of an evergreen because those news articles for May 20th are going to be just as important on May 20th of next year and the year before and the year after. And so it just adds on. It's a rolling. I call it kind of rolling evergreen because whatever happens in technology today, like it's May 20th, and I think Microsoft is announcing a new Surface today, and that will then roll into expire. So it's rolling evergreen content. So next year I post that same file, adding the fact that whatever happens today is added to that content. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great show, and I encourage you to go over to Day in Tech History to fill the void of not listening to Geek Smack anymore, and go from there. So anyway, that's it. I'm not gonna. Well, really quickly, what's been going on with life? The band played last Saturday. Had a lot of fun. I found out that I have some interesting issues with my tires on my car, as they've got some weird cracks on the sidewall, and I just got those tires replaced in the last couple of years. So they're wearing out in the wrong place, which makes me really concerned because one of them was almost flat, and the sidewall was kind of peeling off. So I gotta deal with that and figure out the cash to put on new tires onto the truck and go from there. So that's one of the things that happened. We had a great This Week in Google Glass last night. Luke and I actually we celebrated a milestone on that show as we hit the 1 year anniversary on episode number 41 of This Week in Google Glass over at twig.tv. And then I ran that very interesting video. In fact, I could probably run it here right now. It goes a little something like this, and I'm only going to run a couple minutes of it. This is just basically the rundown. You can see that over on This Week in Google Glass. It's just me, all 40 episodes of season 1, I pushed into 2 minutes 47 seconds and put some music behind it. Now, I posted it up last night, and YouTube came back and said, you got a copyright issue on that. And it was like, I got the music from you. YouTube has this area where you can actually download what's supposed to be content-safe music. And it came up and it said, no, there's this company that says that they own the copyright on it. It's like, but it's sitting in your music you can use area for content creators. So I disputed it. I said, hey, look, this is content that you gave me. So it's now in dispute. And hopefully there's a chance that they could actually take it down. And if it gets taken down, I just put it back up with different music to it. But it's just really funny because it's like, this is supposed to be usable content, not disputable content. So anyway, but yeah, you can check that out. That's actually over at youtube.com/This Week in Glass. And then, of course, the video will also be up on thisweekingoogleglass.com, and you can go from there. iPad 365, one of the reasons why I'm doing some changes, I'm doing some shifting around, because Sundays I always set an iPad 365 up for the show. And in all reality, for the last 2-3 months, I haven't been doing the show. And I did an episode yesterday, and I'm going to be putting up in the next day or two, trying to figure out where I'm going to actually put this schedule together. my new rework schedule, now that I don't have to do this show on Tuesday, that's going to open me up not only for business opportunities, but also for other show opportunities, moving shows around, putting content in, getting ready to write the ebook, and all that other good stuff. So that's basically what's happening, and that's the gist of it. Now, you've probably come here and you're saying, "Where's the tech news?" I hate to just bear with me for 5 more minutes. We're not going to have any tech news on this episode because of the fact that we're just kind of saying, I'm saying goodbye for now. Geek Smack is not going away. The flagship podcast is taking the summer off. That's what's going on here, so I can revamp it. It's a tough decision, but and I'm going to talk about in a minute why it was a tough decision, what I came to, the realization and everything like that. But it's I think it's a good thing for some of the things that I have formulating in my head. I need to write down some business plans. I also need to finish some stuff that I started a couple months ago that I said that I'd finish. And with all the shows that I have, I don't want to close down a show by any means. I just basically, out of all the successful shows I took the one show that was least successful by its nature, because it's expirable content, and I'm putting it on the shelf to try and figure it out. So that's basically what's happening, and I know that that's not much, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but first of all, thank you very much for coming to the show, and Geekazine.com, it's not closing by any means. We've got a lot of great shows. There's going to be a revamp on the website, so you can see all those shows, and then I'm going to push all these other shows into with Geekazine, kind of reel everything back in, so to speak, even though they've all got their own websites and their own growth to them. I need to reel them back just a little bit so we can so it can be one big cohesive unit. So, with that said, I'm just going to give you one more time. You can go over to Geekazine is the Twitter handle. Geekazine@gmail.com is the email address, and then of course 608-205-4378 is the phone number. That's not going to change. I'm not getting rid of any of that stuff. So you can always contact me there, and let me know what you think, if you watch the show, how you watch the show, and let's keep in touch here. And like I said, there's still plans around August 1st. You'll see. I'll be putting out updates, and you'll see around August 1st. There'll be I'll let everybody know where the direction of Geekazine is going to go at that point and go from there. So with that, we're not going to do any Tech Smack. We're not going to do any Geek Smack on the show, but we're going to do the main editorial. So, and that's what I'm going to prepare for now. So I'll be right back. I remember when I started this podcast, it was about October 2007. I finished up with another podcast, the Independent Music Podcast. I wanted to create something new revolving around technology, and I found what would become Geekazine.com. The first show was a little rough. I'll admit that. I used the music and intros from the Independent Music Podcast because I still didn't have a name for the show, and the podcast was simply called The Show with Jeffrey Powers. It wasn't until November 7th that the official name Geekazine Weekly Podcast came about. I was reading off tech news. I was reading off geek happenings. I didn't know what was going to happen with the show, where it was going to take me. It was just an audio podcast because I loved doing it. And I'm glad I jumped over to doing Geekazine.com. My weekly progress would include getting up, packing up the laptop to head off to a coffee shop. Panera Bread became my coffee shop of choice because their Wi-Fi actually would turn into 30-minute use at about 11:30. So I had a couple hours to get things done, and then at that point I knew it was time to finish up and get back here so I could do the show and the tech news of the week. The show itself got a major facelift in 2011. Now, I wanted to bring a new direction into it, especially since I was going all in on the video side. The studio got upgraded, so you had something to see me behind instead of just me and a blank wall. and a talking head. As I continued on, I upgraded the intro, I upgraded the graphics, and a lot more with Geek Smack, and of course gave it a new name, Geek Smack. Even moved from the original music. If you remember that original theme song, I created that over 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, and it was. I still have it somewhere. I should have pulled it up. So, but here we are, episode number 300. It's a great milestone to head out on, for now, at least. So, a couple of years ago, I started thinking about what shows were working and what shows were not. Geek Smack does a good job with unique viewers. Don't get me wrong. The problem is it's still the lower side of all my watched shows. It's expirable content, and the thing is, after about 2 weeks, it's nobody will watch it. Maybe one or two as one-offs or whatnot. But for the most part, those shows have pretty much died after about 2 weeks. Other episodes climb at about the 30-day mark. Geek Smack just basically stayed stagnant. Now, I've been going out on some major events this year, and that caused some very big gaps in Geek Smack, which ultimately hurts any type of expirable content show. To also compete with any other tech news shows, because there's a lot of them coming out now. Tech News Today, Daily Tech News Show. They run 5 days a week. My weekly show of news and editorial, especially one that next week might not happen because I'm off to New York or I'm off to Las Vegas. It was definitely starting to lack. The schedule for Geek Smack 2 also brought me a lot of time invested in this show. For instance, it would take me about 4 hours to pre-produce, get all the show notes together, and go from there. It took about an hour to record, and up to 8 hours to finish. 2 hours on a good day, especially with the live stream involved. The reason why simply was a waiting game, waiting for video to post, waiting to edit and repost to the masses. It took, sometimes it actually took up to the 10 p.m. hour. I would re-encode it. There was a problem. I'd have to re-encode it again. There was another problem. So it wasn't like I was working straight up to 10 o'clock, but it definitely took my time there. And of course, I could have removed the live element from the show to make it a little bit easier, but that's not the direction I wanted to go with Geek Smack. I wanted to have people come to the show and talk, and they did. My crazy schedule also affected the other shows that I do that actually do more serious numbers and bring in a little bit more revenue. Like, for instance, iPad 365 has been on hiatus due to my crazy schedule. Day in Tech History also suffers. I can't stop doing that because it's a daily podcast. 7 days a week since August of 2009, gearing up to the 2000th episode in a row. It's starting to suffer, and I need to put a little bit more focus into that this summer so I can get advanced so I can start doing other stuff. Sometimes I ended up having to do the show even last minute, and all these shows doing them last minute can actually hurt their direction. Finally, to be realistic, Google Penguin has really affected podcasters' websites. Doing any podcast with a series of links in the show notes basically gets posts downgraded, no matter what you do. I've attempted everything from text-heavy set of show notes. If you watch even the script that I'm reading off right now, you'll actually see into the show notes. And the end result was good posts that don't go anywhere in text discovery on Google. Now, I talked with Jennifer about this a few times. In fact, we had a very interesting, intense discussion before this show started, and we tried to figure out a new direction. We assessed the show, we planned where I'm going with Geekazine, and of course, we're still working on the final revamp of the business plan for where the shows are going. But I did decide at this time, it's time to take a hiatus from this show. I'm not sure what type of hiatus, but I'll definitely be taking the summer off from Geek Smack. Hope to rejuvenate, where I can possibly come back and kick this show into higher gear. And definitely give myself some time off, which I don't normally give myself when it comes to a full work week. My work week is literally Monday through Sunday. Now, during the summer, I'll be focusing on other shows like the special events feed, which has I still have to finish the TechCrunch Disrupt interviews, and I've got a lot of products sitting in the back here that I need to focus on reviewing. And then, of course, the Day in Tech History podcast, full rundowns of tech history, iPad 365 with iPad apps for you to use. This week at Google Glass, which we do, we record live on Monday for Tuesday consumption with my co-host Luke Wallace. And then, of course, howtorecordpodcasts.com, where I'm also a podcast coach showing people how to do that. And I've never really created a podcast for that because I thought it was better to have an actual blog site rather than a podcast. And there's a lot of podcasters out there that are already doing that type of show. I didn't want to add that to my podcast schedule. And I think it does pretty well. There's a lot of people that love the fact that I spend more time on the articles than have to worry about recording a show. And then, of course, the first 2 ebooks on podcasting that I've been working on for the last couple months. I might even take some time to soak in the sun. Yeah, that's not me. So I'll tell you something. I'm already freaking out on this decision. How do I stop doing something that I've been working on for about 6.5 years? It's like if you had a job and you said, it's time to actually take some time off, take a sabbatical or something like that. But then last night I had some inspiration hit me via a post that I saw from a friend, that friend being Scott Monty, Ford's social media guy. Apparently, Scott also made a life-changing decision and decided to leave his position at Ford Motor Company. He announced it actually just yesterday. Now, while I'm not leaving the brand altogether, I'm taking the main show out of commission. The video will be turned off, and to keep the audio side from going completely idle, I'll probably run a monthly What's Happening section until the time that Smack can come back. I want to thank all of my sponsors over the years. They've helped me keep the lights on. They've helped me keep things going forward, and I do appreciate that. And of course, the current sponsors will be moved off into other shows. I want to thank all the people who watched and listened to the show. You truly kept me going all of these years. Thanks to those who even emailed and called in. I'll never forget that first email I got. The guy was very blunt and basically shook up my show a bit. And thank you. I don't even know who it was. I tried to email him back, and apparently the email bounced. So it probably was a troll, but it still affected me in the right direction. Now it's time to smack this show to bed for a little while. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is a necessary one. I will make one last pitch. Please feel free to donate to this and any other show that I do. Part of staying around for so long has been through donations and, of course, working through the sponsors. You can always send me a one-time PayPal donation using my email address at geekazine@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for watching and geeking out with me, and stay tuned because we've got a lot more at Geekazine. This is not the end of Jeffrey Powers or Geekazine, or what some people are calling the prison shirt, but it's definitely a new page and a new direction. So that basically does it. Like I said, if you want to contact me, my Twitter handle is Geekazine. Think magazine, put in a geek. Of course, geekazine@gmail.com, and the hotline is 608-205-4378. That does it for this episode of Geek Smack, probably the shortest episode we've ever had. And let me know what you think, what your direction is. You want to help out with the show or any of the shows, let me know, and let's talk about it, because that's the direction I really want to go. Is I want to get you guys a little bit more involved in whatever I do down the road. So for the last time for Geek Smack, you guys geek out. Jeffrey Powers here. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening on iTunes, on Stitcher, and wherever you catch your feeds. And we'll see you next time. Take care.